Okay, we'll go ahead and start. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I now call to order the special City Council meeting of August 8th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so can we please have a roll call? Oh, actually, yeah, we'll start with roll call.
Okay, thank you. I'll note for the record that Mayor Murphy is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Toms here. Councilmember Tave.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Here.
Councilmember Sassai.
Here.
City Manager Murray.
Here.
Assistant City Attorney Mogg.
Here.
Mayor and Council, the agenda was posted on Thursday, August 3rd at 2:15 p.m. with all legally required notices. No written comments were received in advance of the meeting. Does the council have any conflicts to report on our agenda item this evening? Nope.
Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go back up to the land acknowledgement. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Ohlone people who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Ohlone elders, past, present, and future, who call this place Ohlone land, the land that Pinole sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Ohlone community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. So next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. Are there any citizens to be heard on items not on the agenda?
Yes, thank you. We have Andrew Ilch.
Thank you. Welcome.
All good? Okay. Hi, my name's Andrew, and I've been living in Pinole pretty much my entire life. And I must say, the people who I grew up here, I really appreciate. And I really like the culture here because it's quite diverse, because I've been to other parts of California, and especially towards Folsom. And I noticed like, wow, it's really not like home, but in a way, somewhat. And it's not with people, but infrastructure. And I think that's important because infrastructure determines our quality of life. You know, for most of us here, I'm just assuming that most of us have to take car here. And that's because, well, can you safely bike on the street when cars are going over like 40 miles per hour, even though the speed limit is 35? Look, no one follows traffic laws unless it's convenient. Or does anyone here take bus? I don't blame anyone who doesn't. I don't, because I'm not going to wait 30 minutes. And if I miss the bus route, well, I have to wait again. And I'm just here to advocate for better infrastructure, especially when it comes to biking infrastructure and public transit, because these are crucial for people of all aspects of life to get around. Because how do you get your job? You have to, you know, move. You have to go somewhere. And if you have to make it where essentially, especially in America, where there's essentially a paywall to go to your job. And that's unfortunate. I see this with my mother, who has to drive. You know, I mean, I remember before I was ignorant of this, like, why don't you just, you know, even like go to the grocery store, like at Trader Joe's, why don't you just walk? Well, it's not really convenient to spend just a one way, like, or even round trip, like what, 40-minute one way and over like basically an hour just to get groceries. Now imagine trying to get to work or anything. And like, as a kid, I used to just be driven everywhere, and that just sucks. And I'm just here to like say, like, you know, the people of Pinole, I've seen in the studies with the environmental survey that people want better biking infrastructure and, you know, public transit. I'm not asking for anything crazy. I'm not asking for like rail here. I mean, or like trolley buses, just like improve, you know, bus service to at least every 15 minutes would be a great start. Or even like extend, like, I don't know, the bike network. Because when I bike, it's dangerous. I've been almost hit multiple times. And like, is there any sort of plan? I looked, and like, I mean, so far the only implementation of like any sort of infrastructure is repavement of the roads, which is great, but that's like the bare minimum. You know, investment in bike infrastructure and public transit would greatly benefit us both, you know, economically and ecologically. I mean, we're in a time where global warming is an issue.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Any other speaker cards?
Yes, thank you. Online, we have Cordell Hindler. Go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me, Heather?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, so good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Tom, the council. My name is Pinole Hindler, and I am a very concerned Richmond resident. So I have three things to say. So number one, I was watching the last meeting last month, and I was very disappointed for the number of reasons. One, the public as well as the invited guests were waiting 40 minutes for the meeting to be reconvened. To me, that shows a lack of transparency, because when you have presenters that have come to make a presentation to you all, you should value their time. Waiting 40 minutes, that's a lack of transparency in my book, one. And number two is also that same meeting, every time when Mr. Anthony calls in to raise some concerns, he gets cut off. And I don't feel that's not right to your constituents. They're the ones that had voted for you, and you cut them off. Because I have spoken with other mayors in West County, and they do allow the individual to finish their comments. So I'm hoping that Pinole can show a little bit of courtesy to your constituents. And number three, I was looking at the budget from the that got passed last time, and once again, I look at some of these positions, and the reason that I have been advocating for an assistant city manager is because I looked at other jurisdictions in the Bay Area, and the assistant city manager plays a very vital role, because whenever the city manager is not there presently, he would designate the assistant, he would designate his second in command to handle the affairs while he's not present. So I'm hoping that for next year's budget that certain positions should be allocated. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hindler. Any other comments?
No more public comments. Thank you.
Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5. And this is a public hearing on the sewer service rate assessment for fiscal year 23-24. And we'll start with Ms. Dillon for a staff report. Thank you.
Good evening, council. We're just waiting for this to load up. Okay, great. Thank you. So we'll be talking about the sewer service rate assessment for the fiscal year 2023-24. Next slide, please. So our sewer rate provides us revenue for repayment of our state revolving loan for the state mandated updates to our treatment plant, the operation and maintenance of the treatment plant, along with our collection system and our pump stations, as well as the projects in our capital improvement plan within the collection system that are identified in the city's CIP. We had a wastewater rate study that was completed for a 5-year period covering fiscal year 2018-19 through fiscal year 22-23. And that included annual rate increases of 3% each year for that period. And the way that the rate is structured as defined in the wastewater rate study is that the residential properties pay a flat rate per month, and then the commercial properties pay a rate based on their land use class, which is multiplied by their water usage amounts. And in the staff report, there is a table which lists the service rates that are approved. And as you can see, the residential pay a flat rate, and the way these fees are calculated, we are contracted with Wildan, and they are the ones that prepared the wastewater rate study, but they basically get water usage data for the commercial properties from East Bay Mud. And some of the charges for the non-residential users are based on their water service size. And then some are based on CCF, which is 100 cubic feet of water consumed. So that data comes in directly from East Bay Mud for the non-residential users. And then the residential properties, as I said, pay a flat rate per month. Next slide, please. One slide back, please. So the sewer rate is collected through our annual property tax bill, and which is issued by the county. The assessment information is provided to the county assessor's office annually by August 10th. To levy the sewer service rate on the property bill for fiscal year 23-24, the council must hold a hearing on the report of charges to be submitted to the county for collection. And then following the public hearing process, the council may adopt a resolution and direct the filing of charges for collection by the county tax collector. And that the resolution has to be approved by a 2/3 vote of the city council. And for fiscal year 23-24, the resolution proposes to maintain the previous rate structure equal to those of fiscal year 22-23 for an additional fiscal year through June 30th of 2024. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. In the fall, we'll be commencing a new sewer rate study, similar to the one that was previously accepted by council to establish our future sewer service rate. Those rates will be dependent upon a condition assessment analysis, which we're completing right now, which is a CCTV of all of our collection system, and then coupled with the improvements that have been identified in the sanitary sewer master plan that we recently adopted. And for fiscal year 23-24, we expect to receive about $5.8 million in revenue resulting from these rates. And tonight we recommend that council approve and adopt the fiscal year 23-24 sewer service rate and order that the levy of the rate remain equal to that of fiscal year 22-23. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that report. Are there any questions of staff? I'll start to my right. Go ahead.
So, just clarity, the 5,820, or 5,820 or 5.8 million that you mentioned, is that includes the 3%? Or is that the 3% that's additional to the revenue?
That is the last 3% that was approved. There is no increase built in from last year. We're not changing the rate at all. But for the 5-year period, there were annual increases that were built in.
Understood.
Previously.
And the sewer fund, it goes to the sewer fund.
It does go to, that's correct.
Thanks. Those are my questions.
Okay. Questions? Go ahead, and council member Sasai.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. I had a question about next steps past this resolution and about the commencement of the wastewater rate study that's coming in this fall. Is the plan for next year to come back with a 5-year sort of wastewater rate proposal?
Yeah, so in the past, we've done a 5-year period, but I believe when we go into fall, because now we will have a full-on condition assessment, there may be a different structure that's prescribed. But when we commence that study and when it is ready to be accepted, it will be presented to the council based on what's decided at that point.
Got it. And it will likely be similar to this last resolution adopted in 2018, where it's going to be an annual rate increase per year.
That's correct. Usually, if it is a 5-year period, then annual is built in. There have been examples where the 5 year is the industry standard. That may change based on what the consultant tells us moving forward. But generally, the annual rate increases are built in.
Okay. Is there a reason why we conduct the wastewater rate studies the year after the 5-year period, or that period of that rate assessment is done?
No, it just happened to be that we're waiting for our collection system CCTVing to be done, but we certainly could have started it earlier. But we're waiting for the master plan and the assessment of the collection system to be done before we folded that into what it's going to cost to fund these improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Martinez Rubin.
Thank you. My question has been answered about what happens after the study findings from this fall and the period which that would cover. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Seeing one more.
So how does this include Hercules?
No, this does not. This is,
Just be a Pinole rate increase?
yes, these are just Pinole rate increases for our collection system.
I see. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other questions of staff, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, thank you. Rafael Menes.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, council, staff, and members of the public. Delighted to be here. I've just got 3 questions on this item. First off, without a rate study, is the city still legally able to impose even continued rates at the prior rate at all? Secondly, once the rate study is completed, is the earliest that new rates could be imposed this time next year or July first, the start of the new fiscal year, or is there some other timeline for that? And then finally, I had a third question sort of linked to those. Oh, yes. Noting that we don't yet have the data from the treatment studies or anything like that, is there even a rough idea yet as to how much of an increase would be expected over a 5-year term once the new studies are implemented, or is there simply not enough data to even give an estimate for that yet? That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers?
No other speakers.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and return it to staff to see if we can get those questions addressed.
I'll go ahead and request Attorney Mock to answer question number 1, and then I can come back to 2 and 3.
Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem and council members, good evening. The city does have the authority still to impose this rate increase. The prior rate study, that was the basis of the prior 5-year prior 5-year study supports and provides justification for these rates. We obviously need an additional study if we were going to increase the rates, but because the rates are staying the same, the support is in that prior study from 5 years ago.
Thank you. And to add to that, when that new study is done, if it isn't in place or it isn't accepted by the council in time, next time around this year, then like Attorney Mogg mentioned, we would likely impose this, keep the rate consistent unless that rate study was accepted and then approved. And then we would ask that that new levy be imposed as of July 1 of that fiscal year. And then question number 3, at this time, we don't have enough information to gauge what that 5-year structure might look like and what is the magnitude of that increase. I think it's too early for staff to make that determination at this point.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, I'm going to return this to the council. Are there any other questions, comments, or a motion?
Ready to make a motion?
Yes.
I move that council approve the resolutions for the city of Pinole to set the city sewers set the city sewer rates for fiscal year 23-24, similar to 22-23, and directs that the sewer service rates be placed on the Contra Costa County property tax roll.
And if I can just ask for clarity, you said fiscal year 23-24. Is that the motion the fiscal year you're looking for? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
with rates similar to fiscal years 22-23.
Is there a second?
Can you please repeat the last part of that motion?
Last part of the motion is directing staff to place these rates on the Contra Costa County property tax roll.
Thank you. I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. And can we get roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Martinez Rubin,
Yes.
Councilmember Tave, Councilmember Sasai,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Toms.
Yes.
Noting for the record that Mayor Murphy is absent and motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you, staff, for that report. We appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mogg, as well. So moving on to adjournment. This is the adjournment of to the regular city council meeting of August 15th, 2023, in remembrance of Amber Schwartz. Thank you all.